Friends, welcome back. If you are following my channel, you may be aware that this is a small endeavor to help undergraduate students of Indian universities tackling their university exam questions in BA Honors Political Science. I'm starting this new playlist with liberty, which is one of the most important normative political values which give the moral framework to any of the political arrangement along with justice, right, and equality. So let's begin this concept of liberty, especially the negative and positive liberty, which mainly shall be asked in the question in undergraduate level. Let's start. What is in store, as I always give glimpses, the analysis of previously asked questions. Of course, I have taken it from DU, but it's almost same in all the universities. Then we'll discuss the negative and positive liberty, especially as given by S.A. Berlin, the meaning, features, pros and cons of these two types of liberties. Then difference between negative and positive liberty, as I'll discuss in detail. And then prominent thinkers on both sides, you should include their name and ideas in your answer to make it more effective. And then finally, as usual, I will give a answer template on how to write a good answer on this topic in university exams. If we see last 4 years paper, starting with 2015, of course, it's from DU, but it may be similar in other university questions. In 2015, it is elucidate with examples Berlin's distinction between negative and positive liberty. Do you agree with this view that there is some possible danger of authoritarianism inherent to justification provided for positive liberty? Give answer. So we'll see that how Berlin went into describing the positive liberty, and as he told that we are moving into a slippery slope from rationality as the reason for the freedom, and then how the state comes into picture and it become oppressive and totalitarian in the name of providing freedom. So that we'll see. This 2016 is critically assess the two concepts of liberty propounded by Isaiah Berlin. This is a very straightforward question we'll see in detail. Write a critical essay on negative and positive concept of liberty. This again is very, very similar to 2016 question. And in 2018, differentiate between the concept of negative and positive liberty. Which concept is preferable to Isaiah Berlin? So these all are very similar question. They expect you to know very clearly the differences between the two conception of liberty as given by S.A. Berlin, that is negative and positive, and also to critically assess Mr. Berlin's view on these two category of liberty, whether it is valid or not, and also to understand on which side he seems to be, whether negative or positive. Okay, so let's begin. Liberty, as we all know, probably we all know that it's absence of constraint on one wills to act. We are free if nobody is forcing us to do what we want to do. So in this sense, it is absence, basically absence of something. What something is constraint or the coercion or the interference or any obstruction. So is a very simple meaning. But if we think of these situations, I have given you 4 situations here. If you can see that we have fundamental rights in India to rights of freedom of speech, expression, association, life, and religion. Our constitution guarantee and many constitutions in the world over guarantee this kind of freedom. Then second, you see the beggars are free because they are not constrained by anyone in their desire to beg. Yeah, we can say that beggars are free in the sense that there is no constraint on their desire to beg. But do we consider them free? Third situation is handicapped are able to access public places more easily and hence have more freedom now because of the disabled friendly access policy by government. Can we say that by the policy of providing more access infrastructure by the government, the disabled are now more free or enjoying more freedom? And the last is example I have given, and many more example of this can be given to make the situation more complex as what liberty means. That an alcoholic warned by doctor that consuming alcohol could be fatal for him, despite trying hard every evening, he again drinks. So can we say that he is truly free? So these are the situations which takes us to that fuzzy situation where the meaning of liberty can be anything or many things if you consider many more this kind of situation. In the first situation where fundamental right of freedom of speech expression is clearly a kind of no obstruction or no constraint on your right to speak or express yourself or social life and religion. But in the second case, then it becomes difficult. Can we say that beggars are free because nobody is stopping them from begging? Or cannot we say that handicaps are now more having more freedom because government is having the disabled friendly access policy? Or can we say that that person who is alcoholic and know very well that it can be fatal for him, he is not able to overcome his desire or passion to drink and he drinks, whether he is really free? So thinking of this way takes us to the different notions of freedom, and it can be many multiple meanings can have. But Isaiah Berlin did a great thing in his essay in two concept of liberty in 1958 to categorize or put the all different kinds of meaning of liberty into two neat boxes, negative and positive liberty. We'll see what those. And you should know that this different interpretation of liberty has defined how individuals relate to society or state. We'll see different political ideologies it has defined, and consequent political actions have given rise to major conflicts in modern history. So we should know what are the different conceptions of liberty are. So first, I'm taking the negative liberty. As I told, that in the most general sense, if we say absence of constraint or obstruction, interference, coercion, or anyone's will to act, then it is negative liberty. Negative in the sense that it is absence. Something is absent. And what is absent is the interference or constraint on coercion on anyone's wills to act. Constraint in sense of negative liberty is generally external to the agent. It should be human-made or man-made and intentional. So it is excluding natural constraint, internal constraint, and unintentional consequences. And as far as nature of the man is concerned, it considers man as rational, reasoned, knowing his interest best, and able to make informed choices. It does not dwell upon the nature, purpose, and content of choices. It doesn't matter whether it is good or bad. The agent or the man is to decide his own good, unless they harm others. That is the test for leaving the choice to the will of the individual. It is opportunity concept of freedom, as Charles Taylor said. It only provides you the opportunity to act. It does not say anything about whether you are able to do that or not. So in this sense, it is freedom from constraint. So the concept is freedom from. It evolved during the 17th century Reformation movement, which is closely linked to the ideas of liberalism, but it is not limited to liberalism. All political ideology cherish the liberty. Liberty is considered natural right, as Locke said. It is inviolable vis-a-vis preference of society or a state, and hence it limits the authority of the state. So it prohibits state in coming into the personal zone or the personal autonomy or a kind of silence zone within which an individual is free to act unless it harms others. It is championed by Hobbes. Of course, all liberals are negative liberty champion, like Locke, Mills, who wrote on liberty, and furthered by libertarian in modern time as Hayek and Nozick. If we see how Isaiah Berlin describe negative liberty. Uh, it's very much similar to the previous slide, but some things are different. What he said, I'm just in verbatim, I have written, what is the area within which the subject, a person or group of person, is or should be left to do or be what he is able to do or be without interference by other person. In many words, it's the same, that it defines a zone or a domain or a frontier within which an individual is free to do or be what he wants to or what he desires without any interference or obstruction from the outside by other person. How wide this area or zone or the domain should be and what it should contain are debatable. Like Mill said that uh, unless the actions are harming other or other regarding the state or society has got no business to interfere in individual action. Many may say that the freedom to speech or dialogue or expression or religion should be the content, but it's debatable. It leaves out natural constraint like somebody is sick, somebody is handicapped, and incapacities, distinguishes political freedom from social justice and economic freedom. Isaiah Berlin is very clear that if suppose by government action, like the previous example, handicaps are provided easy access to different places, then it is social justice. But we cannot say that it is freedom. So he is very clear that the economic freedom or social justice should not be conflated with freedom. Those all values are different and should be understood very clearly as different. He also said that democracy and liberty has got no direct link. A despot or a dictator may provide you negative liberty in the sense that he will not interfere in your personal domain. But it is not accepted by many who feels that participating in democracy itself increases liberty as positive liberty. He is critical of negative liberty on two grounds. He says that negative liberty is meaningless for people lacking basic necessities of life. If one is too poor even to think of the goods of life or his own desire and wills, then what is the meaning of liberty to him? Suppose a person is very sick, lying on bed, and there is no obstruction on his action, but he is not able to do anything. For him, what is the meaning of negative liberty? Other point he raises that there is no equality of liberty, that minority who possess it have gained it by exploiting or at least averting their gaze from the vast majority who do not. We know that this negative liberty was brought in by bourgeoisie or the capitalist class when they gained a lot of property. And it was one way to protecting property. It is very much linked to that. And this kind of negative liberty helps those who are haves, those who have not. They want some kind of positive interference from state for entitlement, for fulfillment of their basic needs. For them, what does it mean that state is not interfering in their affair? Because they don't have anything to act upon. So on these two grounds, Isaiah Berlin is critics of negative liberty. He supports it on that it's a better guarantee against the danger of paternalism and authoritarianism. Paternalism because the state comes into picture. He decides that what is good for you, I will decide and I will take you to more freedom by interfering in your personal liberty. And that may go to totalitarianism or authoritarianism. But negative liberty by stopping the state is better guiding us. These kind of malified intention of the state, one can say, and it is compatible with plurality of goals and values. You know that Isaiah Berlin gave the plurality values theorem. So for him, the different values are very distinct and should be considered distinct, and human have different goals and ideas, and all should not be mixed together. So negative liberty leaves these goals and values to individual. In that sense, it is compatible with plurality of goals and values. So in turn, you can see that in a very different way, S.A. Berlin has considered negative liberty. And many people may say that he was in the camp of negative liberty itself. So now we'll see that how he described positive liberty and how he condemned it on the basis that it's liable to be misused. If we see pros and cons of negative liberty very quickly, in favor, we can say that it's simple to understand, explain, of course. It is better guarantee against the danger of paternalism and authoritarianism, already I've explained. Compatible with plurality of goals and values, again, S.A. Berlin's view, and protect individual rights. It can be criticized on the ground of it promotes status quo, laissez-faire state, and meaningless for people who lack basic necessities of life, no equality of freedom, we have seen, and protect haves and leaves out have-nots in general, and undermine community life, because positive liberty, as we will see, promotes community life. Now see the positive liberty, and then we'll see how Isia Berlin described it. Uh, Instead of absence, it denotes presence of action. Presence can be of two things: on part of self to fulfill its goal desire. That can be, you can say that self-direction or self-control or self-mastery or self-realization, that one is master of one's will, one's desire, oneself, you can say. And second is on part of government or society to remove constraint, enabling one to fulfill one goals or desire. It is not only just leaving one to whatever one may desire, but enabling one to fulfill one's goal and desire. So doing something, removing the obstacle, whether that obstacle is natural or man-made, like handicapped or sick, providing medical facilities and like that. So it is an exercise concept of freedom, in difference to opportunity concept. Like here, the action is involved, so it is exercise concept. And freedom to do something, or freedom to be someone. It provides meaning and substance to negative liberty, because without it, without capability, what's the meaning of negative freedom to one who is not capable of doing anything? Consider man both rational, authentic, virtuous, and irrational, impulsive, lustful at the same time. It is a concept of divided self with preference for the former, the higher self, and purpose and content of action should be rational and virtuous. So it also tells about what actions are desirable. It should be rational, virtuous, moral, ethical. Concept is very old. Positive liberty concept is very old, as old as human civilization. In our Indian civilization and many other, it is said that knowledge liberates. Buddhism said that nirvana is the ultimate freedom, where you leave all your desire and ego and become free. In Hinduism, it is called salvation, mukti, or freedom from the cycle of birth and rebirth. So this conception of positive liberty is very old. It promotes community life, because freedom is participation in collective activity and obeying law reflecting general will of the society. Collectives are supposed to move towards common good, and individuals are supposed to add to the common good by obeying the law made by the collective will. Allow much wider role to a state. Even state may interfere with equality and negative liberty, and it is supported by Rousseau, Hegel, Marx, Green, Amartya Sen. We'll see in later slides. How Isia Berlin talked about positive liberty. He says that it defines what, or it tries to reply to the question, what or who is the source of control that can determine someone to do or be this rather than that. In simple terms, by whom am I ruled? Am I master of my will or desire? Yes, self-autonomy or self-mastery, self-control, self-direction, or self-realization is the notion of positive liberty. If I'm self-master, if I'm controlling myself, I am free. If I can give direction to myself, if I'm realizing my own goal by my own actions, I'm free. He gave a very interesting twist to the divided self, which was brought in by Kant and also Rousseau and many others. He says that there is a higher self or lower self. Yeah, it is not his view. It came from behind before, but he said that the higher self, which is rational, authentic, or virtuous, or true self, uh, and lower, which is irrational, impulsive, lustful, or empirical belief and desire. So, this conception of freedom says that a true self should guide the individual and it should tame the lower self. Uh, and the true self knows what is best or what is good for the individual, and the lower self is kind of passionate or lustful. It is an empirical self which drive to baser kind of act. Extension of individual self as represented by collectives, organic social whole. What he mean to say that this true self, that higher self, is extended. It is assumed to expand beyond individual to include the society, the nation, and individual becomes a just mere part of that organ. And to fulfill the interest of this organ, of which the individual is just a mere part, rightfully that individual can be forced to act in a certain way by that collective society or nation or by a state. This kind of thinking may give rise to paternalism and authoritarianism, that state may say that you in your empirical self are not knowing what is good for you because your true self is not able to rule your lower self. So because we know, state know or society know you're good, so we are guiding you to do something which will make you more free, because your true self would have liked this you to do, which in your empirical self you are not able to decide. So this is a very dangerous kind of thinking which prompts authoritarianism or totalitarianism or paternalism, which Isaiah Berlin warns that misuse of this kind of notion or conception of positive liberty is dangerous for actually freedom. What is the pros and cons of positive liberty? In favor, we may say that it's more nuanced and substantive. Yeah, of course. It broadens the horizon of liberty because it's not only external constraint but internal constraints also. Not only man-made but natural, and many other kind of uh, constraints are brought into the picture, make liberty actually meaningful and substantive. Support moral and virtuous act, yeah, we have seen, and promote community life. It can be criticized on the ground that it's not easy to understand, explain, as you have seen that I also struggle, anybody will, at what exactly positive liberty mean, more susceptible to be abused, as Isaiah Berlin very elaborately and succinctly described, may lead to paternalism and authoritarianism, same thing, and it undermines individual liberty in the way I described and what Isaiah Berlin said. And it is good in theory but difficult to practice. It looks very good, that self-mastery, but it may lead to authoritarianism or totalitarianism. This slide is only to recapitulate what is the difference between negative and positive liberty. Negative, we have seen that freedom from constraint, positive freedom to form choices and act. Over what domain area am I free? Negative. Then positive is who controls what I be or do. Negative is personal liberty, whereas positive is self-mastery or self-realization or self-autonomy. It's an opportunity concept, whereas positive is exercise concept. So it is freedom from, it is freedom to. Negative, man is considered rational, reasoned, self-interested, whereas positive, it is a divided self, higher versus lower self. Negative limits a state's authority, where positive allows more authority to a state. Negative is value neutral, non-judgmental as far as desire or content of the action is concerned, but positive allows it is a value preference. It allows for moral act, ethical act, and judgmental. And negative avoids authoritarianism or better guarantee against authoritarianism, but positive may lead to paternalism and authoritarianism. Thinkers who supportive of negative liberty, Thomas Hobbes, you know that he was champion of liberalism, and he said that free man he is that in those things which by his strength and wit he is able to is not hindered to do what he has a will to. So he's a champion of liberty, of course, negative liberty. John Locke said that man is free to act without subject to arbitrary will of another within allowance of moral law. So he was a bit giving about morality to the act. J.S. Mills wrote on liberty, liberty of speech and dialogue, self-regarding and other regarding act, limiting states' authority over self-regarding act. Hayek, the libertarian in modern age, said that freedom is a state in which man is not subject to coercion by arbitrary will of others. If we see who advocated positive liberty, Kant comes first, who said that true freedom, obedience to moral law, that is duty. Then Rousseau, for him, freedom is participation in collective activity and obeying law reflecting general will of society. Marx, who said freedom as self-realization. T.H. Green, who said that true freedom is act of goodwill. It is positive power of doing or enjoying something worth doing or enjoying. That is moral freedom. And Hegel, who dialectic of ideas he is known for, from abstract concept of freedom linked to single individual will to a concrete freedom actualized in a political community as a rational system of wills. So just to summarize this long discussion, what we have seen that multiple meanings of liberty, it is not one, but Isaiah Berlin categorized into two: negative liberty, absence of constraint, non-interference, whereas positive liberty is self-control, self-realization, or self-autonomy. And collective actions to remove constraint also is positive liberty, help one to realize one goal. Negative liberty, individualistic approach limits state authority, whereas positive liberty is a collective approach, allows greater state authority. Differing interpretation of liberty define individuals' relation to society and state. If you define it negative, then individuals are autonomous in their own act, and society cannot interfere in individual act. And society's interest is just aggregation of individual interest. But if you take positive conception of freedom, then individual is mere extension of a collective organic society or nation. In that sense, individual acts should be directed towards common good or general will of the society. Different political ideologies like liberalism, conservatism, and socialism, Marxism, left, right, are defined by how which conception of liberty they think. And different political arrangement like communist arrangement or capitalist arrangement or liberal democracy and all have defined one way or other how they relate to the idea of liberty. And distorted interpretation of positive liberty may lead to majoritarianism, totalitarianism, or authoritarianism, as Isaiah Berlin very, very succinctly and he has illustrated. So this is all. Lastly, as usual, when I give an answer template. So here also I have tried. If you are given, suppose this question, write a critical essay on the negative and positive concept of liberty. You start with the introduction, introduce the concept of liberty, stating that though the concept may be interpreted in multiple ways leading to different meanings, yet its binary categorization into negative and positive liberty by Isaiah Berlin has dominated the debate and approaches in understanding the concept. Just mention about the conflict between two conceptions of liberty, negative and positive, and how this difference has defined individuals' relations to society, state, different political ideologies, political arrangements, and conflicts. You give a glimpses of your conclusion here itself in one or two lines. In the body, which is substance of your answer, explain negative and positive liberty, their meaning, features, pros and cons, as I have told you in detail. Bring about the differences between them. You can prepare a table and also write, or in paragraph also you can write. List out thinkers on both sides, at least 4 or 5 as I have given. Just remember, and some sayings of there also. Analyze and discuss. Mainly, you should discuss how Isaiah Burley outlined the difference between negative and positive liberty, how is in view positive liberty as self-realization uh, leads into, or divided self also, conception of divided self lead into establishing and justifying authoritarian state, and critically analyze whether it is the only way it can lead, or is the only way positive liberty can be understood, because it can also be understood as removal of obstruction, wherein it is nothing to do with self-directing the individual. And then conclude. I always say that paraphrase the introduction, summarize, and then state your final view and concluding remark. One I have written here: liberty is one of the four fundamental normative political values, other being equality, right, and justice, each political arrangement aims for. But there is no unanimity what politically it means. Nevertheless, categorizing it into negative and positive liberty, Isaiah Berlin provided a fertile ground for debate on meaning of the concept. However, to provide substance to negative liberty by way of positive liberty without becoming authoritarian, that is, adopting a third ground to provide maximum and equal freedom to all, is a continuing challenge to any political arrangement. So, students, thank you for listening, and have a good time. Enjoy your holiday. But if you have got time, then I will request you to start viewing this channel right now and also reading all the resources you have. Thank you very much.